Hi there, this is Pride Weekly. We'll start with Monday. A man's body's been dug up and burned in the street in West Africa because he was gay. 31-year-old Sheikh Fall had been buried in a cemetery in Senegal, but a day later his body was exhumed, dragged through the streets and set on fire in front of a large crowd. And we know this because it was filmed. You hear people refer to Sheikh as a man-woman. Senegal's very anti-LGBTQ+, homosexuality is classed as being against nature there, with the threat of up to 5 years in prison. Daouda left the country 7 years ago. He tells AFP News how bad it was.
In Senegal, living with homosexuality means being in danger from morning to night. Everything can change at any moment. We live with fear. We live with this stigmatization. I have many friends who have committed suicide in Senegal.
Amnesty International says Sheikh and his family have been violated. Local authorities are promising to punish what they're referring to as barbarism. A mayor and pastor in Southern America has taken his own life after he was outed by a right-wing news outlet. Photos of FL Bubba Copeland dressed as a woman with makeup on were posted by the 1819 News website. He asked them not to, but they did anyway. The 62-year-old shot himself in Alabama after police pulled him over while he was driving to check on his welfare. And Joe Lycett's raised over 40 grand so far for a homeless charity after the Home Secretary called rough sleeping a lifestyle choice. It's seen Suella Braverman labelled as emotionally and morally bankrupt. By me, I've labelled her that. The pansexual comedian says he's always thought lifestyle choices were more about whether to put potpourri in your bathroom, and he's using an image of someone on his Instagram to raise money for the charity crisis. It's Pride Daily for Tuesday. Quelle surprise, a government promise to ban conversion therapy's been broken yet again. It's not been included in the King's speech today, where Number 10's priorities for the next year are laid out. The government's been saying it would ban the practice of trying to change someone's sexuality or gender identity since Theresa May was Prime Minister. John Smid helped run Love in Action for over 20 years, one of the biggest Christian gay conversion institutions in America. He tells 60 Minutes Australia not once did the therapy actually work.
I did not see a single person who ever found freedom from same-sex attractions or freedom from their homosexuality. I spent a lot of time and a lot of years deceiving myself and therefore deceiving other people.
I told you last week how children in Hungary had been banned from a photo exhibition in the National Museum there because there's LGBTQ+ content. Well, now the director of the venue's been fired over claims under-18s were allowed in. The exhibition in Budapest was by the World Press Photo Foundation and featured images of elderly LGBTQ+ people in a care home in the Philippines. So obviously all the kids that saw the photos are now automatically queer and very, very old. Hungary has a law that bans the display and promotion of homosexuality in material accessible to minors. And a trans student in Texas has lost his part in a school play because of a change in gender policy. Max Hightower was named as the male lead in Oklahoma 2 weeks ago, but then Sherman High School said there's a new rule and actors can only play a role if it's the same as their birth gender. You know, like Mrs. Doubtfire. It's Pride Daily for Wednesday. A Ugandan rapper whose homophobic lyrics include "Burn all the Batty Man" is no longer banned from the UK. Bobby Wine's also the leader of the country's opposition party. He says he doesn't agree with homosexuals and can't understand pride in being gay. The travel ban's been in place for about 10 years. No word on why it's been lifted. Uganda passed one of the world's strictest anti-LGBTQ+ laws earlier this year. It includes the death penalty in some cases. Dr. Frank Mugisha is an LGBTQ+ advocate in the country. He tells Channel 4 News what it's like to be queer there.
I've been worried for my life for a very long time. I'm petrified. Ugandans were already hating on LGBTQ persons. So after the introduction of the law, almost every person who is either openly gay or perceived to be LGBTQ is worried and scared.
A Ugandan tabloid once printed photos of gay people with the headline, "Hang them." Bobby Wine's previously said he's insulted by claims he's in the closet. Virginia in Southern America now has its first openly transgender state senator. Democrat Danica Roems defeated Republican Bill Wolf, who's anti-LGBTQ+. During the election campaign, the 39-year-old was put through transphobic attacks by political rivals, but she won anyway. And Buenos Aires Pride see more than 1 million people on the streets of the Argentine capital, and next week's election there was a big talking point. It's the second round of the race to be president on November 19th. Far-right candidate Javier Milei is seen as anti-LGBTQ+. People carried signs saying, "Milei hates us," and "Please don't vote for hatred." The slogan for the Pride March was "Not one more adjustment, not one less right," with calls for equality and an anti-discrimination law. It's Pride Daily for Thursday. In the sweepstake for Queer Ally of the Day, who had the Pope? Well, he says trans people can be baptised, act as godparents and witness a wedding in the Roman Catholic Church. The Vatican's released a document signed by Pope Francis in response to a query from a bishop in Brazil about LGBTQ+ participation in these things. GLAAD, which pushes for queer acceptance, says it sends an unequivocal message to end the persecution and exclusion of trans people. The Pope often talks about making the Catholic Church more LGBTQ+ friendly, and earlier this year he said this:
Somos todos hijos de Dios.
We are all children of God, and God loves us as we are, and for the strength with which we fight for our dignity. Being homosexual is not a crime. It is not a crime.
Don't get carried away, though. He also said homosexuality's still a sin, so, you know. A woman in a same-sex relationship in Japan who got pregnant through IVF has been denied hospital treatment. The country only allows those in straight marriages to access the procedure. Many get around this, though, by going abroad. So a hospital refused her a checkup. An LGBTQ+ support group in Tokyo is calling for healthcare equality, regardless of marital status or the way a pregnancy comes about. In an attempt to give a US city council more power over libraries so it could ban LGBTQ+ books has failed. Good, ha. Comes off the back of a 2-year political fight in Pella, one of Iowa's most conservative areas, all in the name of protecting kids. Yawn. Attempts to ban queer books in libraries are happening across America, often driven by hypocrites who say they're all about free speech. It's Pride Daily for Friday. A suicide prevention group for queer young people is leaving Twitter because it's so toxic. The Trevor Project has nearly 350,000 followers, but says there's an increasing amount of hate and vitriol since certain moderation functions were removed by the platform. The group says the people it's trying to help are regularly victimised on there, and the stakes are just too high. It remains on the likes of Instagram, TikTok and Facebook, plus its own social network. Amit Paley's the CEO of the Trevor Project. He tells CBS, just because there's queer representation in the media, it doesn't mean LGBTQ+ young people don't feel alone.
You might see on TV that there's a lot of acceptance, but then you look around your community, if you don't see any openly LGBTQ people, if your school is not allowing you to use the restroom that corresponds with your gender identity, you're going to feel like people won't accept you, and that can lead to that sense of isolation and feelings of wanting to kill yourself.
The Trevor Project's just the latest queer organisation to leave Twitter in the last few months. Among those also quitting, you've got the transgender charity Mermaids and LGBTQ Youth Scotland. Feels like Florida's so anti-queer now, you get the death penalty for liking George Michael. A non-binary physics teacher has been fired there for using a gender-neutral title. Avi Vary prefers the one spelled MX, pronounced mix or mux. The school said it violates Florida's Don't Say Gay law. It means her 15-year career's on hold for now, even though the state's desperately short of teachers. So the kids' classes might be massively overcrowded, but at least they're safe from gender-neutral titles. Phew. And same-sex partnerships are being legally recognised in Latvia. Couples will have tax and social security benefits and rights regarding hospital visits. They still can't adopt kids, though, and won't have the same inheritance rights. Latvia swore in its first openly gay president back in July. I'm Kev McGrath. See you Monday.